So I will say, it did take me late in my life. And granted, I'm 28. I'm not really that late into my life. But it did take me late into my life to finally come to the realization there is no better sport than college football. And if you want to argue any point of that with me and debate the NFL or the NBA, or I know no one's debating MLB with me, I'll take you back in time, 48 hours from the time this show is released. I'll sit you on my couch. We'll turn on Clemson, Georgia Tech, and we will sit there until midnight. We'll watch every game unfold, and I'll look to you at the end, and I'll tell you, see, nothing's better than that. Welcome in to a very impassioned Spring Break college football show. Today is Monday, September 15th. Last week, 2 episodes. Work, life, got in the way. Couldn't do our regular scheduling of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I was potentially going to do that moving forward. And 2 weeks from now, we might switch back to a Monday, Thursday. However, everything that transpired on Saturday, there is not enough room in just 2 shows for me to talk about it and then tell you where things are going and then plan for what's going to be a great week 4. We're back Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Spring Break College Football Show, your favorite ball knower's favorite ball knowing show. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to recap everything that happened in the terrific Week 3 slate. And by everything, I mean we'll talk about the 4 biggest games. We'll tie some bows on some other, smaller storylines on Wednesday. And then we'll keep moving forward and prepare for an awesome Week 4. If this is your first time tuning into the Spring Break College Football Show, first of all, thank you so much for joining. If you are watching on YouTube, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Any support that you give this show, I try to give back in tenfold worth of content. If you are listening, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review, and then make sure to head to my socials at Spring Break CFB, that is both TikTok and Twitter, where you can find stuff from this show, but stuff that goes beyond this show. Again, we're 6 weeks into this show? 5 weeks? I don't know how long it's been. It's my favorite thing I do in my life right now, and I enjoy seeing the interaction grow on both social media, the YouTube, the listeners. So thank you for helping me grow this show. I do not plan on stopping anytime soon, and your support helps me keep going along. So, as I mentioned, we are going to cover everything that we saw this past weekend. We're going to have a whole lot of fun while we do it. When I look at what we saw Saturday, and I'm like, okay, well, this could be the story of the week, or this could be the story of the week. Well, that could be the story of the week. As the games kept going on, we kept getting different reasons of why this team should lead the show or why this outcome should lead the show. I don't know where everybody else is going to lead things off on Monday. But the story of Week 3, one of the best slates of college football I remember in quite some time, took place up in South Bend, where Texas A&M goes in to face Notre Dame, pulls out an instant classic win, 41-40, moving the Aggies to 3-0 on the season, the signature win for Mike Elko in his second season. Meanwhile, Notre Dame falls to 0-2 very early in this college football season. So let's just set the stage for what this game was. You had 4 different lead changes in the second half alone. The first half, quick, explosives, power. Points being put up on the board, very back and forth. Second half alone, 4 lead changes. A combined 917 yards of total offense from both of these teams. And then, as exciting as everything was for the first 55 minutes of this game, back-breaking plays down the stretch. Notre Dame's holder muffs the extra point, and instead of a 7-point lead and almost a guarantee that you're going to overtime at worst, it's now a 6-point game, and you run the risk of losing this one in regulation. The very next play, Texas A&M returns a kickoff for a touchdown. A&M fans are going crazy. The stadium can't believe it. Holding penalty brought back. Back-breaking play for the Aggies there. And then down to their final breath, Marcel Reed hits Nate Bjorker. Bjorker. Marcel Reed hits his tight end for a touchdown on a 4th and goal from the 13-yard line with just a few seconds left to play. Wraps it up. A&M gets its first road victory over a ranked team since 2014. I believe they had lost the last 13, 14, 15 road games against top 25 opponents. Oh, I have it right here. Snapped a 13-game streak. Massive win for the Aggies here. And what stood out to me the most, and obviously what stood out to everybody who watched the game, is just the steps that this passing attack has taken from the 2024 season. It always kept this game within reach, despite maybe having some issues defensively or some penalties or some turnovers, clock mismanagement, injuries. Every time that Texas A&M was handed something, handed a shitty card, their offense responded in a massive way. Marcel Reed, efficiency doesn't pop off the chart, 17 of 37, but 360 yards on those 17 completions, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Man, oh man, what a day for the Aggie wideouts. When we previewed this game, we talked about how Notre Dame is going to run a ton of man coverage. And when you do that, your best wide receivers have to make plays because they're going to get their one-on-one opportunities, and they certainly did so in this game. Mario Craver, the big addition from Mississippi State, 207 yards on 7 catches and a touchdown. Craver has 443 yards this season through 3 games. In 9 games last year for Mississippi State, he had 368 yards. Casey Concepcion, some huge plays as well, 4 catches for 82 yards. I think he had the tougher matchup on the day going up against Leonard Moore, but still made his impact felt when it was needed. Those 2 guys, we talked about A&M down the stretch last season. There was no passing attack. The defense fell apart, and they kind of fumbled away an opportunity to represent the SEC in its championship game. Last year, they had 1 wide receiver who went above 400 yards in 2024. They are now on pace to have 2 1,000-yard receivers in Concepcion and Craver. Night and day difference from what the Aggies had to deal with last season. And Marcel, big improvements in terms of just the downfield passing. It was such an interesting situation at the quarterback position for Texas A&M last season. And I say that as a Connor Wegman lover, who is now crushing it down in Houston, 3-0 for the Cougars there. It was just so tough for any quarterback to find rhythm in this offense because it was Wegman, and then Marcel, and then Wegman again, and then Marcel, and it just kept going back and forth, and the offense didn't really have time to mold itself into one universal look. And they did that this offseason, and you can see just already, the first 2 games of the year, why I was a little hesitant with A&M, it was like, okay, it's UTSA, it's Utah State. They hadn't really faced anybody tough. And I said, going into Notre Dame, you're going to learn everything you know about Texas A&M. And offensively, we got some positive results. When the defense struggled in the 2024 season down the stretch, it was tough for Texas A&M to win in a track meet because their track meet was only on the ground. They really didn't have anything through the air. They had talented running backs and a good offensive line. It's tough to put up 40 points when that is really the only dimension you have on offense. In this game last night, the defense certainly had its issues, missed tackles, chunk plays, bad penalties, but it was fine because the offense did more than pull its weight. A&M, as I mentioned, committed 13 penalties on the day. That would cripple most teams, but it was fine because the offense always had a response. They needed to show us this type of game to take Texas A&M seriously moving forward. And remember, they were just 1 game away from an SEC title berth last year. They were heading into a game against Texas. Winner got to represent the conference in the SEC title game. They lose that one. And the way that A&M had unraveled toward the end of the season, you really hadn't been considering them much heading into this year as like, oh, wait, no, they're still one of the top 4 or 5 teams in this conference. It's early in the season. We're 3 games in. They haven't played a lick of SEC play. But everything that I saw offensively from A&M gives me so much confidence in them moving forward because I do believe at the end of the day, Mike Elko will be able to get his hands around this defense, get better continuity out of the defensive front, chop down on the missed tackles. And hey, I picked them to make the playoffs this year. I thought they were a playoff caliber team. 3-0 start. They can afford to lose a couple of games in conference play and still be in for one of those at-large bids. So really impressive win. Really impressive start to the season for Texas A&M. They were, to me, the story of the weekend. Not just because of the amazing game, but I think they're the team that we learned the most about on Saturday. Now, to flip things over to the Notre Dame side of things, it's hard to say this after an 0-2 start, but I still really love this team. Everybody's going to enter this week with a microphone in front of their face or fingers at a keyboard and say the same thing. Notre Dame season is done. They lost their first 2 games of the year to ranked opponents, but not like the Texases and Ohio States of the world. So even if they go 10-2, we'll be able to hang our hats on these 2 outcomes and say they don't deserve to be in the college football playoffs. I don't buy any of that. I think we need to take a step back from the immediate outcome of these games and remind ourselves that it is September 15th and we have 9 games left to play. And the fact that you think you know where all of these other games are going to pull out and where Miami's going to finish the season and where A&M is going to finish the season and how that reflects on Notre Dame is just crazy to say. What if we get through the end of the regular season and Notre Dame is 10-2, but so is Miami and so is Texas A&M. And Miami won the ACC, so they got an automatic qualifier. And Texas A&M is in at-large bid into the SEC. They finished 3rd in the standings. So Notre Dame, at that point, 10-2 football, and they lost to what I would consider at that point 2 playoff teams by a total of 4 points. And that's enough to keep them out. Oh, and by the way, their offense, which is, working around a new starting quarterback, first 2 games of the season, is still averaging 32 points per game against those 2 teams. CJ Carr, I thought, has done really well. For all these new quarterbacks that are fitting into places, and the Dante Moores of the world have had it easy the first few weeks, and Julian Sain didn't have to do too much against Texas. There's so many quarterbacks that are not living up to the hype, a couple of which we're going to talk about later in this episode. CJ Carr, 63% completion rate, 257 passing yards per game, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's working through with some runs when they need it. I thought CJ Carr has been really impressive the first 2 weeks, despite this team being 0-2. I think they've done a really nice job this week, specifically getting some development in the connection between, tight end Eli Raridan and Malachi Fields, the transfer from UVA. There's too many new pieces on offense to just go out in week 1 and look amazing. I think the way that they have looked against Miami and A&M, 2 teams that I am very much in on, I feel pretty good about. And again, that's all the while the run game was much better this week than it was against Miami. It still wasn't super explosive at times. It was a lot of grinding between the tackles, and you get a lot of yards because he had a lot of carries. I'm giving Notre Dame, especially on offense, way more of a break after these first 2 weeks, because I thought the way that they have responded against really talented opponents makes me feel good about them through the rest of the season, where, look, you have USC, couple of ACC teams. There's nothing really super scary on the schedule. If they can get past USC and get to 10-2, I don't want to start the conversation now, but we will have it, and I will be a firm believer that Notre Dame deserves to be in the conversation if they make it to that point. Now, the one thing I will say that concerns me about the Fighting Irish is defense, which was awesome for them last year. I thought positionally they had top units at all 3 levels. I thought the cornerback tandem was the best, if not a top 3 duo in the country. I thought the offensive line was really talented. I thought the defensive line was really talented and deep. What I'm starting to realize a few weeks in is that for as many great athletes as they have, ton of high-end talent, there just isn't enough beef up front to match with the big boys of college football. Miami brought forward an offensive line of 5 guys above 300 pounds. Notre Dame has one guy that maybe flirts with 300 pounds, and he's 302. There's not a whole lot of meat along their defensive line. A&M brought the same thing, 5 guys with 300 pounds, and you just see as these games wear on, the Notre Dame front 7, as athletic as it might be, they start to get a little worn down from having to go up against guys that are bigger. Now, that's something you cannot fix this year. You cannot add guys into the portal. You're not going to get guys up to 300 pounds or to 285 or to 290. You're going to have to rely on your athleticism. Fortunately, the big boys of the season are out of the way. And going up against the defensive front or the offensive lines you will the rest of the season might not compare to what you had to face in Miami and Notre Dame. Hopefully, you don't really have to worry too much about everything else so you can get to that point of 10-2 and hopefully still be in for the college football playoffs. And then you saw it show up in the pass protection as well. 0 sacks against Marcel Reed, just 1 in week 1 against Carson Beck. The defensive line is relying way too much on athleticism, not on size. And when it's all said and done, too, the cornerback duo of Leonard Moore and Christian Gray has not been living up to the hype. And in week 1, it was kind of slowly carving apart the secondary. Carson Beck did a really nice job just facilitating the ball, moving up and down the field. This one, it was more of the explosive plays, the downfield passes, the rub plays that get you open for a 40-yard gain. 2 weeks in, the cornerback room has definitely been under-delivering on what I expected out of them. And it's more Christian Gray than it is Leonard Moore, but they work as a unit there, and both of them have not been living up to the billing of being one of the top secondaries in the country. So offensively, I thought it was going to be the issue. I thought the issue for Notre Dame, if they were going to have any, was Carr getting in a groove and the passing game finding its footwork in the first few weeks. I feel good about the offense. It's defensively where I start to be like, when the playoffs do come around, and if they do get in, do they have enough beef to face up against the best teams in the country? And, yeah, like I said, the schedule lines up fine for Notre Dame. You take care of USC. Don't get upset by Arkansas. That's one I'm going to put on here right now. Arkansas is a sneaky football team. Taylon Green is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. Really fun offense. They almost came back and beat Ole Miss this past week. Notre Dame cannot lose to Arkansas. That's one to keep your eyes on. But if they can get by USC, they can get by Arkansas, they can get by the lower level parts of their schedule, they'll be in the conversation. But also, I'd say with that, the success of your season now hinges on the success of Miami and A&M. You need Miami to be at worst in the conversation for the playoffs, if not winning the ACC. You need A&M to be a 10-2 type team that people are saying like, oh, that's a shoo-in for the playoffs. If both of those teams are shoo-ins for the playoffs, and all you did this year was lose to them by a combined 4 points, that'll look good on the resume, even though it's 0-2. Don't let those teams fade away from the spotlight. Notre Dame, I know you just lost to them. I know you're pissed at them. You are now fans of Miami and fans of A&M for the rest of the season if you want to be in the college football playoffs. So that is where I left with both of those teams. I need a drink of water. Let's do that for a second, and then we'll kick it over to what was the other potential game of the year we saw on Saturday.
Balake. Where is Balake at?
So as I said, not to be outdone by the late-night heroics of Notre Dame A&M, Georgia and Tennessee put on an absolute show Saturday afternoon in Knoxville. Georgia pulls out the overtime victory, 44-41. This game had so many different lives to it, or stories, or, ups and downs of the roller coaster. So let's just run through them real quick. In the first quarter, it was all Tennessee. They fly around offensively, 3 quick touchdowns. Joey Aguilar starts the day 14 of 14. 233 yards of total offense for the Volunteers. I'm watching this game, and we'll talk in a second. I never got out on Georgia in this, and we were on the side of Georgia. So we'll talk about Georgia in a second. You get through that first quarter, and you're like, whoo, Heupel's learned his lesson here. He's going for the throat. He's got to keep it up for 60 minutes, but man, he's going for the throat here. And then the Bulldogs, frankly, owned the entire second quarter and just about the entirety of the third quarter. outscored the Vols 20-3 in that span, held Tennessee to just 45 yards of offense in the second quarter. So they go from 233 in the first to 45 in the second, 37 yards through the first 13 minutes of the third quarter. Let me do some quick math. That's 2, you carry the 1, 82 yards in 15 minutes and 13 minutes of the third. 28 minutes, 82 yards. After going 233 allowed in the first quarter, the Bulldogs owned those middle 2 quarters, forced 2 turnovers on interceptions, 3 punts, and again, outscored the Vols 20-3 in that. Now, Tennessee does respond late in the third with a touchdown, with 7 seconds left, adds 10 more points in the fourth quarter, so they come roaring back to life. And Chris Brazell, owned the day. If you were talking about an individual player that made his impact known the most, it was Chris Brazell. 6 grabs, 177 yards, 3 touchdowns, amazing plays down the field, and just like, we'll talk about Tennessee and how you should feel moving forward, but you're like, oh boy. Hard to not feel good about the Vols offense after this game. So Tennessee roars back in the fourth quarter. And then as the game winds down, we all know how it follows. Gunnar Stockton responds on a game-tying drive with one of the best throws that you'll see all day. People get down on Gunnar Stockton sometimes because he isn't this, top-rated recruit with one of the best arms. That throw, that teardrop into the back corner of the end zone to tie this game, he stood up when the moment needed him most, and he made a terrific play, terrific grab by the receiver. They, I believe, get the 2-point conversion, and then you know how the rest goes. Max Gilbert misses the game-winning field goal. Game goes to overtime. Josh McCray gets the game-winning score on a 1-yard rush, and Georgia goes home in what I said is an instant classic between these two teams. So where do we go with both of these programs? I always talk about the winners first. Georgia, we've talked about this before. We talked about it in the preseason. This isn't the same talent profile that Georgia has had over the last 5 to 10 years. But they still have the man that matters most in this sport. I don't know how many times it needs to be said. If you want to beat Kirby Smart in college football, you have to snatch every ounce of life out of that man's soul, out of the football field, put up 85 points just to make sure that Georgia does not come back and beat you. Now, some of us ball knowers watched the first quarter, and we saw Tennessee up 21-7, and we checked our FanDuel sportsbook, and we said, Georgia money line sitting at plus 300. I'll take that. That'll do. Hammer that in to win 100, because we know Georgia football and Kirby Smart have 9 lives. It's a dog with 9 lives, okay? Winning games in the first quarter against Georgia doesn't mean shit. There's 45 minutes left to play. That's way too much time for them. I wanted to leave this game with like this super hot take about Georgia football and what did Georgia do differently? What did they change to pull out this win? They put up 44 points. How did the meat and potatoes of college football go in and win a boat race with Tennessee? They were just Georgia football. Gunnar Stockton had 31 pass attempts on the day. Georgia ran the ball 55 times. They had half the amount of penalties that Tennessee had on the day. They were the better team on third down. They converted on all of their fourth down attempts, won the time of possession battle by 10 minutes. That's just Georgia football. Now, we look at the score and we say 44 points. Wow, that's pretty impressive for a Georgia football team, especially one that looked so deficient on offense all last season. The same one that put up 28 points to Austin Peay last week. They didn't change anything. They were true to themselves. And that's why, for the last few weeks, I've had Georgia as my second-rated team in the country. I think more than ever, the talent disparity from the best teams to the good teams to the average teams is as leveled out as it's ever been. Which should hurt Georgia. It should pull teams closer to Georgia in terms of talent, which is what it's doing. But as long as Kirby Smart is running the show, give me the coach, give me the program I trust above all to win these games here. I just, the talent can be whatever you want it to be. Tennessee might be the more talented team, specifically on offense. They just might have more talent. They don't have Kirby Smart, who's been the best in the business for a while now, especially now with Nick Saban out. And, man, just cat with 9 lives. Can't take him out. Really impressive victory to pull that one out. Kirby Smart said it himself. They should have lost that game. Tennessee should have been the victor. But the way that Kirby Smart gets his team up for big moments and to respond in big moments, there's few guys in the business that can do it like him. So, very impressive win for Georgia. There's no hot take to it. They just played Georgia football and got a really impressive win. So, on the other side of it, I feel like I'm such I sit right in the middle of the teeter-totter, where I'm not hot takey at all. I came away super impressed with Tennessee in this game. Look, it's a haunting result. Tennessee did everything they possibly could to win this game. They were the more talented team, the more explosive offense. They had the better quarterback. I think Joey Aguilar was fantastic in this game. And they still lose. And I know that everybody wants this to be the kill the kicker story. Or, maybe not kill, because I can't say that on a TikTok clip when I move it. But everybody wants to beat down on the kicker in this game. It's a big part of the story. It's the biggest part of the story. But it's not the full story of this game. Joey Aguilar did throw 2 interceptions. He was great. Turnovers play a big role. They went 34 minutes in this game without putting up points. I know that the hot start was great, but like I said, if you want to beat Kirby Smart, run that thing up to 80 points. 21 points in the first quarter, 7 in the third with 7 seconds left. Up until that point, nothing in between. So you go 34 minutes without putting points on the board. You had 2 turnovers from your quarterback. You ran the ball better than you ever have against Kirby Smart. You went above 100, really impressive, but we're still outrushed by 73. You committed 10 penalties. Weren't fantastic on third down. You were really good, but wasn't perfect. You had your miscues. The missed field goal is the biggest part of the story. But there's a lot else that goes into this and why, against a team that isn't Georgia, let's just pick them. If you're going against Texas A&M and you play that game, you win. If you're going up against Clemson or LSU, you win. You were just going up against Georgia on Saturday, and unfortunately, you can't afford 10 penalties, 2 turnovers, 34-minute scoring drought, no matter how great you were outside of that. And that's what ended up happening here, on top of, obviously, the missed game-winning field goal. And then the last thing I'll say with Tennessee, there's just a little piece of you, if you're a Vols fan, that's got to be happy with the way your team played, right? Yes, the loss is gut-wrenching. It's so heartbreaking to put in that effort for 59 minutes and lose on a couple of those plays. But, what you watched from Tennessee has to give you so much more confidence heading through the rest of this season. This was supposed to be kind of a retool year for the Vols. I think a lot of people went into this being like, hey, if we get to 8-4 with all the changes that we've had, we'd understand it. But you're sitting here at 2-1, a 3-point loss to Georgia. You have a quarterback that joined in the spring. You have a lot of new weapons, a really new offensive line, and you put up 41 points on one of the most daunting programs of the last decade. The loss sucks, but it's hard to not feel good about the Vols through the rest of this season. Their defense made some good plays when they had to. And again, you should have won the game. But this is a pretty good result for the Volunteers. There's no guarantees in this sport, but for a team that felt like 8-4 was kind of the acceptable outcome this year, I feel a whole lot better about the chances of this being a 2 or a 3-loss Tennessee team and being in that kind of Alabama Ole Miss conversation of last season and South Carolina too, where you're like, oh no, Tennessee's got a good case of being in the playoffs. They're going to pull out some big wins here. If they lose one more game in conference play, that's fine. But yeah, I don't walk away from this being like, I can't well, Tennessee's done for the year now. No, that was a really impressive win, or a really impressive loss for Tennessee, and something that I think you can still take a lot of tangible stuff with moving forward. So, I know it's a tough one. It's a tough way to feel after a game because all you can focus on is the loss. But the way the team played was fantastic. It really was. You know what else was fantastic? How about this for Blakey transitions? Best bets of the week. Crushed it. 3-1-1 on Saturday, which puts us up to 11-8-1 on the season, up almost 3 units on the year. We are up 2.94 units. We hit on Georgia. We hit on Texas A&M. We pushed on Florida, which we'll talk about at the end of this show. And again, we pushed on Florida because I tweeted it out on Tuesday. Florida's plus 10. Go grab it now. Now, if you took LSU at the smaller number, you won too. Maybe I should have middled that. Maybe that's the lesson. When a line goes all the way down, just kind of try and middle it. We hit Georgia Tech, which we're going to talk about next. And our one loss was brutal. I mean, we bet Minnesota money line on Thursday. It was minus 130. And Saturday morning, we wake up to know that Minnesota's best player, their star running back, was doubtful to play. And they go and lose to Cal. So that one hurts, but still 3-1-1, up almost 3 units on our best bets. I will say, follow the socials. I said it in the beginning of the show. Follow at SpringBlakeCFB, Twitter, TikTok. I give out all my plays. And all my plays yesterday, 2 days ago, went 12-5-1 and up over 5 units on the day. We had some awesome wins. Make sure to head over there if you don't want just the 5 best bets. It's tough to get with 5, tough to get undefeated. But if you get in, look at that, 12-5-1. We won 12 of our 6 bets, or 12 of our 18 bets. It's a pretty good turn. ChatGPT also had a winning week. Its second straight winning week at 3-2. But they're still 9-11 on the season, down 3.17 units. And again, on this show, when I give out ChatGPT's bets, I'll throw in like hey, I kind of like that one. I did that twice on last week's show. Alabama minus 20.5, Syracuse minus 37.5, both of which hit. We're winning money. We did it all last season. We're going to do it again here. But yeah, another great week. Had to just give a little bit of the gambling update because we are trying to beat ChatGPT this season, off to a great start. And we're only going to keep widening that gap as the year goes along.
My name's Blake.
All right, we've got 2 more games to recap on this show. And while they weren't the same quality as Notre Dame, A&M, or Georgia, Tennessee, we still had some really fun ones. This one started off our day. Georgia Tech gets a massive ACC win over Clemson, 24-21, game-winning field goal as the clock expired. When we talked about this game last week, I told you that one team has an identity, one team does not, and I'm going to take the team that knows who they are to pull out the win, and that's exactly what happened. Georgia Tech knows who they are as a football team. You know, it's first and foremost, it's a ground and pound between the tackles, utilizing the quarterback running the football, using your running back room a ton, and then when you have to throw the ball, just be efficient. Don't be erratic, don't be frantic, take what the defense gives you, and that's what we're going to be. And then defense, it'll be physical. They ran the football on Saturday 42 times for 147 yards, and as I said, Haynes King was actually really good through the air, but he was just more so efficient than anything. 20 of 28, 211 yards. He had 103 and a score on the ground. Georgia Tech converted over half of their third downs. They won the time of possession battle. They had just 3 penalties and no turnovers. They are just a clean, gritty football team, and that's who they've been for a while now. That's who they were all through last season when they started, being competitive with these really good teams and taking Georgia to 6 overtimes. Like they're always going to hang around because they play clean football. They don't really try to get away from who they are as a football program. Do they have the most talent in the world? No, they don't at all. This is the same team that barely beat Colorado in week 1. But they have enough of the talent to match that identity that they're trying to put forward, and they'll always be competitive because of that, which is the biggest reason why I picked Georgia Tech to represent the ACC in the conference title game. I had Georgia Tech versus Clemson. We just watched them play out here. And Georgia Tech is now in a really good position to jostle themselves toward the top of the ACC early in the season. They got one of their toughest games of the year out of the way with a clean victory. So, amidst all the uncertainty in the ACC heading into the year, and that was, what is Miami going to be? How much will Florida State rebound? We knew Clemson was going to be good, and we'll talk about them in a second because they have not been good thus far. But when I looked at Georgia Tech, I was like, this is a feisty football team that plays clean football. They've got continuity at major positions. They've got a good head coach. They're always going to be there. And they were on Saturday. It wasn't the most impressive win, but they gritted it out. They got a game-winning field goal and sent Clemson into a tailspin. My story for Clemson coming out of this is that I have no idea who Clemson is in the year 2025, and neither do they. What is the identity of this football team? To me, what they think their identity is that all offseason, they were told, Clemson's got the most first-round picks on that roster. Oh, Clemson, they returned some of the most production in the nation. And they kind of just sipped on their own Kool-Aid and said, well, if we have all these first-round picks and we have all these returning players, we're just going to be better because of it. And that's not the case. I don't think that just being like, we're talented is going to win games in college football. And you'll see that now. They're 1-2. Their offense has looked miserable. Their defense has been fine, but I don't think they've also been tested that well by other potent offenses. I don't look at LSU 3 weeks in and be like, wow, that's the LSU of Joe Burrow, Jamar, and Justin Jefferson. It's certainly not. Georgia Tech is another one of those teams. It's not flash. It's just clean football. So I don't even think the defense has looked all that great considering who they've played. Returning all of your starters is cool, and it should make things easier to start the season. But it doesn't guarantee you that you're just automatically going to get better. You have to go and get better. And it just doesn't seem like this team decided to take a leap from where they were in 2024. And honestly, it feels like some things of this team have reverted back. The lack of a run game is very evident. They ran the ball better in this one, but it wasn't there against LSU. It was barely there in their week 2 game against Troy. There's no identity. And I know they're missing their top wideout. And I know that trickles down to now the number 1 corner is on your number 2, and your number 2 corner is on your number 3. And all of a sudden you don't have the same vision that you had going into the year. But there's no presence in the ground game. The offensive line doesn't look as good as it was. And Cade has been so underwhelming this season. He had a 73-yard touchdown pass in this game. Take that out. And he had a 14 of 25 day for 134 yards, 1 interception, and 1 fumble. He had the team's both turnovers on the day. Very mediocre passing stats. He did run the ball a lot in this game, but I don't know. They came into the season believing that they had 5 first-round picks because everybody said they had 5 first-round picks. And it's like, oh, well, the draft grades are already done. I guess we don't need to go improve it. We'll just get to April and we'll get selected in the first round. And that must have meant that we went 10-2 on the regular season and we won a national championship. No, well, now you're 1-2. And other teams in the ACC look significantly better than you do. Miami looks fantastic. Florida State has way more heart than Clemson showing. Georgia Tech just went and beat you at home by 3. I don't get it. I don't get it. There's an identity missing in Clemson right now. And we wanted to buy into this team because everything was telling us we should. Maybe it's our own fault for hyping up Clemson the way we had. But they're one of the more disappointing teams in college football through the first few weeks. So that was my takeaway on that game. Let's finish it up in the other Death Valley. I guess that wasn't played in Clemson, but let's head to LSU, where the Tigers held on, beat Florida 20-10. And this one was, I saved it for the end because obviously I don't want to talk about Florida in a second, but this was a total reversal from when these two teams faced last year. We played that game in 2024 and you were like, how did Florida beat LSU? Because in last year's game, LSU outgained Florida 390 to 339. LSU doubled up the time of possession and total plays run. They were far more efficient on third down. They were the less penalized team. All that went right for LSU, and they lost by 11. So now this year, Florida outgains LSU 366-16, just about doubles up the time of possession. They run 24 more plays than the Tigers. They were more efficient on third down, and they lost by 10. I mean, we just completely crossed what they did to each other the past year, where one team dominates and the other wins by double digits. This time, it was Florida that dominated the game. LSU wins by double digits. Two really weird outcomes. And frankly, I'm going to sound like a hater, but I don't feel great about either team. So let's talk about the winners first, because that's what we do on this show. LSU's defense is definitely the group I feel the best about from this game and from this season. They forced 5 interceptions. Blake Baker is obviously one of my favorite coaches in the sport. They did a really nice job holding up against the Gators ground game to just 79 yards. I think that was just kind of the focal point. Let them beat us through the air. They haven't really shown us that they feel that confident in their passing attack. So, let's just make sure up front they aren't running the ball for 150 yards on us. I'll always hype up Blake Baker. And I thought he did a really nice job at not only disguising, pressures, having one guy show a blitz, but then actually blitzing the other guy and dropping that initial guy back in coverage. They did disguise coverages as well. All in all, just a really sound game from LSU. But with the Tigers, I still don't feel awesome about the offense. And we're 3 weeks into the season now without a whole lot of pop and pizzazz to hold on to. Nuss was fine, and Nuss has been fine all season. 15-27 on Saturday, 220 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 really bad pick that Brian Kelly gave him an earful for, and he really deserved it because it was just, that's not a Nussmeier play. He doesn't usually do stuff like that. Caden Durham did well on the 15 carries that he got. There's still just something that seems missing, and it just maybe doesn't feel like a full cohesive unit on the LSU offense just yet. The offensive line still has its moments where it stinks. The play calling I don't always love as well. There's something that I just sit here and I'm like, I don't know. People put this team as heading into the week, I think the AP had them at 3. Some people have them as the number 1 team. When I watch this team, I don't see a top 3 to 5 team in the country. I see a top 10 one. I'm not ready to put them in that group with Ohio State and Georgia and who else do I have in there? Oregon. They're Penn State. I don't see complimentary football in the same way that I do with those programs. They're good. And I don't want to sound like a hater, but I kind of am sounding like a hater. And that'll happen again this year, or this week. They'll be a top 3 team everywhere, consensus, because they've beaten Florida, they've beaten Clemson. I'll probably have them closer to 10 than 1, just because what I'm watching right now doesn't resemble to me hey, you want this team to be number 3 in the nation? Well, allow me to have my concerns over a team that put up 17 points on a 1-2 Clemson football team. A team that slept walk through a 17-point win over Louisiana Tech. And a team that beat Florida by 10 despite forcing 5 turnovers. They lost every other major statistical category than turnover battle. But they won the turnover battle by 5 and they won the game by 10? I don't know. Something still feels clunky about that LSU offense. Now, the defense I feel good about, but I also... hey, let's see it go up against Texas A&M or Alabama or some of these offenses like Tennessee, where I feel like you could really stretch them down the field and run the football. I think we'll get a better idea of what LSU really is when we get to that point of the season. Oh, and saving them for last, my lovely, lovely Florida Gators. Look, I'll say it right now. DJ Lagway handed that game to LSU. It was such a bad performance by the Gators quarterback. And that was after the LSU defense was well, we're just going to hone in on the run game. We'll let you try to beat us. We don't think you can, but we'll let you. We'll make things a little bit lighter on the back end. And he still was that bad. And it's not just the amount of turnovers, it's the way in which they happen. There was a turnover right before the half to give LSU a field goal attempt. There was one that was thrown into triple coverage at the end zone where Florida could have taken a field goal. It was a 2-possession game. They needed to at least get a field goal on that drive. He soars one into triple coverage, gets picked off. There was one was so bad when you watch the replay where he snaps the ball and he is staring at one specific point of the field. He's waiting for his receiver to run to that point, and he's just not locking his eyes off of it. And all it takes is a DB to watch Lagway and go, oh, he's throwing the ball over there. Let me just run right in front of it and get a nice interception. So that was another pick. And then there's inexcusable stuff, like being off platform, trying to throw the ball out of bounds. You have the strongest arm in the sport. Chuck it up to the 50th row of the fucking stands. Don't sail it right at the boundary line where an LSU defender picked it off. I mean, it's so frustrating. I hate to say this. I tweeted this out last night. I'm a Colts fan. If you don't know me outside of this show, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan. There were so many Anthony Richardson-like moments from DJ Lagway, and it's the highs and the lows, because Richardson will make these handful of plays where you're like, fuck, how do you do that? Lagway has that. Lagway had a few throws last night where you're like, damn, dude, you've got that in the bag? But then he also has the predetermining throws before he snaps the ball, which allows defenders to go in and make easy reads. He has such confidence in his body that he can make these crazy throws that just don't add up. He takes so many hits. He can slide, dude. Slide. You've been banged up your entire career. It was like he was trying to get hurt. I think he started playing so bad that he was like, someone just knock me out of this game so I don't have to keep playing. Because every time that he would pick up 6 yards, it was like, oh, hey, slide, slide, slide. And then someone would come in and pop him in the shoulder. I truly didn't get it. It was, for everything that he is supposed to be, that was one of the worst possible games you could have imagined from him. I felt like Florida had the better roster in this game. But between the play from Lagway and then some of the back-breaking penalties, do I have it on here? I think they had like 13 penalties on the day. 13, 11, somewhere in that mix. I have something down here about it. I can't find it. One of those penalties took back an 80-yard receiving touchdown from Jaden Baugh. It's an impossible task. You can be the most talented team in the nation, but when your quarterback throws 5 turnovers and you have double-digit penalties and one touchdown that gets reverted back, that's why I'm saying I'm not impressed with LSU. Like, you hear what I'm saying. The quarterback threw the ball 5 times to the defense, one that went for a touchdown, and then they also had an 80-yard score negated by a penalty, and LSU won by 10? Florida has the better roster. I'm going to say it. Now, moving forward for Florida, and this is the last thing we'll touch on before we get out, because I do think, how are we doing? This is probably one of our longer shows, but it's deservedly so. Yeah, we're not that bad. It's not like all of a sudden, like I just said, I think Florida has the more roster talent. It's not like I'm here 3 weeks in and I'm like, no, I was wrong. Maybe I bought into the quarterback too much. I might have bought into the wide receiver room a little bit too much. And the passing game as a whole has been the reason that this thing in Florida has not clicked this year. But everywhere else, I feel like the talent is matching right on with the expectations I had this season. Defensive line, great. Offensive line, great. A couple of their corners, really talented. Running back room, really good with Jaden Baugh. They are a really talented team. But between the quarterback play, specifically in this last game, 18 penalties in their last 2 games. If that and the quarterback play continue to disappoint, I'm not sure what kind of leash Napier is allowed to have if they can't pick up 2 massive wins in the next 3 weeks. I believe it goes Miami, Texas A&M. That's the point for Florida. 2-1. You got to go 2-1 to give Napier any sort of leash to go through the rest of the season. I think 1-2, certainly 0-3. We'll be packing our bags and looking at who's going to take over Florida in the offseason, which, let's put it out there. Let's get one hot takey thing. If Billy Napier was to be fired by the Florida Gators, who would you bring in? I look at 2 names. John Gruden wants to coach in the SEC. I think he'd be a really fun fit with the Gators, and that's a program that would put, I mean, the program's already putting in all the resources in the world for Napier. They certainly would for Gruden. So he's one guy I'm looking at. And I mean, he would be awesome with DJ Lagway if you can keep him around. And then the other one, I know it's early in his career, take Ben Arbuckle away from Oklahoma. He's a hot name right now, man. I'd go and do it. If Florida moves off from Napier, and I don't want that to happen because fuck, man. I will say, Saturday was the first time where I was watching Billy Napier and I was like, he seems lifeless on the sideline. And I know he's a very chill, calm in his approach. He's not like a Kirby or a Nick where he's screaming his head off. But that looked like a dead man walking. And if it is, I'm going to put it out here. It is September 15th. 2 coaches I'd keep my eyes on for the Florida Gators for 2025 if they decide to move on from Billy Napier. John Gruden and Ben Arbuckle. Those would be the 2 names at the top of my list. And I think they'd be a hell of a show with DJ Lagway. That is going to wrap things up for today. Thank you guys for tuning into, I think, my favorite episode of the Spring Blake College Football Show. Again, follow the socials at Spring Blake CFB, Twitter, TikTok. Go to the Action Network app. You can find all my plays there too if you are a gambler. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, podcasts, 5-star review, subscribe. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll talk to you on Wednesday. We're back to 3 shows. We just took one slow week. 3 shows this week. I appreciate you. I love you. I'll talk to you in a few days. Peace.